Well, first of all, I just want to say this is the first time that the Emet staff has seen each other in over 2 months. So I think we've seen each other on Zooms, but we're finally looking at each other face to face, of course, with social distancing. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing just to see each other live again and keeping the mission of Emet alive. And, I just want to thank also, just share Rabbi Rudenberg's words of thanking the whole Emet staff for what we've been doing right now. This last 2 months has been, it's been something, and we haven't stopped. We have just been saying, what can we do to touch and affect and influence the lives of our students in any way that we can. And I think we've been doing it. And Rabbi Rudenberg, thank you for your leadership and the entire Emet staff and the Emet community for just being part of it. And right now, of course, during our campaign, the Emet community is responding and just seeing what we're doing. And I thank everybody who's contributed and just been so generous and has just poured out their hearts and saying, we're with you in this mission. It's a tough time, we know that, but the mission doesn't stop. What Emet is doing is too important. So, I have with me Jonathan. Welcome, thank you for coming to the studio and agreeing to talk a little about the Poland trip. So, Jonathan, let me ask you a question. First of all, you've been an Emet student for how long?
I think it's already been 3 years now.
3 years. We've known each other about 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years. And you have family also part of Emet, right?
My cousins, Shelly and Esther, are the ones who brought me in.
And in terms of you look at the Emet, your friends, you made great friends here. And in terms of the question, when we went to Poland, last summer we went to Poland, a year or 2 years ago almost, 2 years ago in May or August, we went
in August, I think, because I remember it being very hot.
We're on the August trip. So let me hear you ask a tough question. Poland, we went to death camps. We went to cemeteries. We saw ashes of in one place in Majdanek of Jews who were how many in that you don't even know how many tons of ash there are. You could have done anything with your summer. You could have gone to California, you could have gone to Florida, you could have gone anywhere. Why did you want to come with us to Poland?
I think that Emet understands one thing, which is that there are many ways you can plug Jews into their Jewish identity, and one thing that I never felt with Emet is they're not trying to force religion on anyone. We want you to come back to Hashem on your own way, on your own path, but the first thing Emet does is it gives you what a Jewish identity is, and there's very many ways you could do that, but by sending people to Poland and seeing what happened to Jews just for being Jewish, just for existing as they were, you get this understanding that I am part of a group, and I can change my name, I could say I converted to another religion, I could do whatever thing, but at the end of the day, everyone's going to treat you like a Jew. And a lot of the times it's not a nice way to be treated, but Emet gives you a community, a family where you feel welcome and you feel at home constantly. And the Poland trip just pushes that on you. It puts it in your head that you're like, I'm part of this unique people. And it's, you could go to the beach in summer, yeah, but that's not going to make you feel whole inside. That's going to make you feel good a little bit. But Poland, it wakes you up. You don't come back the same. You come back with the knowledge that you have a job as a Jew.
That's interesting that you said, when we talk about the trip, we call it the Poland journey. We don't even call it a trip. We say it's a journey. Journey meaning that, a trip is a place you go and you see and you take some pictures and you send a postcard home. And a journey means that you come out a different person. And that's what we talk when we talk about the Emet journey. But the next question, John, your family is from where? You're
Georgia, the country, not the state.
You're from Georgia, not the place where they stopped social distancing really early and seem to be very successful.
Ex-Soviet Union state, Georgia.
You're from Georgia. You're from Georgia. And yet you went to Poland with us, Poland is really the story of Ashkenaz Jewry.
Yeah.
And people say at Emet, right now our staff is diverse. Right now we have so many. We have Rabbi Rutenberg and I both, Ashkenaz, and we started Emet. And yet our staff right now is both Ashkenaz and Bukharian. And it's a beautiful mixture, I think. That's what we feel. At Emet, we're one nation. We're one people, and we don't make distinctions.
It's worth noting that when people who don't like Jews say that they want to destroy Jews, they don't say, I want to destroy Ashkenazis. They say, I want to destroy Jews. They don't make a distinction. And Emet teaches us to not make that distinction, because all too often Jews divide ourselves by, well, I'm Bukharian, I'm Georgian, I'm Sephardi, I'm Ashkenazi. You're a Jew. And in the eyes of Hashem and in the eyes of the world, you're a Jew.
So you feel as even though you have Sephardic roots, you're coming to see maybe the Ashkenaz story. It's your story. It's no difference in your mind.
It's all our story, because we went when we were in Auschwitz. They have a room which is a giant book that stretches longer than the room we're in right now, of just names of the victims who they know of the Holocaust, people who they were able to identify as victims of the Holocaust. And you'll find people there with Bukharian last names. You'll find people there with Georgian last names. You'll find people there with any kind. If you're a Jew, it was their sacred mission to destroy you. And now, as a Jew, it's our sacred mission to make the world a better place, because we're still here and they're not.
And that's true. But when we were looking at that book that must contain over 1 million names, we all looked, and alphabetically we looked to find their name. And so many of our students, Bukhari students, Aminos, Pinchasos, Matatos, they found names.
Yeah.
It must have been either the grandparent was maybe was a prisoner of war, or perhaps were living someplace the Germans were able to get them. So it's really all our story.
It's always going to be our story. And Emet, I was telling this to Rabbi Kraft earlier, but there's a thing that occurred when we were on the Poland trip, so people know how Emet helps Jews. We see how Emet helps people like me, people like Rabbi Fazailov and Jacob, and people who are part of the program. But, when we were in Poland, I think we were in Vienna at the time, and we were walking through the streets, and there was two people who were following us. They were interested, and they hadn't seen a group of Jews walking through the streets like this before. And there was a woman who approached us, and I know she spoke to you a little bit, and she told you how her mother's mother was a Holocaust victim, and her grandmother was given away to a non-Jewish family to be kept safe during the war. But always there was this line of Jewish mothers, and we found out that she was still halachically Jewish.
Yes.
And Emet, the odds of that, because Emet does the Poland journey, and we're able to go and do that, we found this woman who maybe she would have never have come back to Judaism without us being there to help her. And now that's one line of Judaism that in the eyes of the world was lost, that has been restored.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that story very well. Just to clarify what Jonathan's saying, part of what Emet does is part of our trip is it begins in Poland. In this case, we started the trip I believe we started in Warsaw. And then we kind of make a circle around in Poland, and we have a beautiful Shabbat in Krakow.
Yeah.
And then Sunday morning, we go to Auschwitz, where we experience, the camp and Birkenau, the death camp. And then you're referring to then afterwards, the way the trip ends is we actually we travel to Prague.
Yes.
And this trip we went to Prague and Vienna.
Yeah.
And I believe this was in Vienna, right? We met this young woman who was from Prague, and she came over to us and she said she feels very connected to something Jewish in her, and she doesn't really know what it is. And she asked us, and she explained, and she said her great-grandmother was somebody who was hidden during the war, and we traced the line down to her, and we realized she is Jewish.
Yep.
And the happy ending of that story, Jonathan, is she found us and she said, could you join us on the bus? And we said, sure, right? We said, absolutely. So she came a little bit on the tour. So when I got back to America, I started doing some research for her, and I investigated. She sent me her papers and her story, and it was a story that really fit. It was really about a great-grandmother, unfortunately, who had intermarried even in the 40s. And the great-grandmother was able to survive with a granddaughter, and that granddaughter was this woman's grandmother.
Yeah.
And we traced it back, and we realized it's a story that makes sense, and she's Jewish. And I've been in contact with her, and she has plans to go study in Jerusalem.
Baruch Hashem. And so people understand this is what Emet is. It's bringing Jews back. It's not just here in Queens. Yes, we're here in Queens centered out, but it's Jews from all across the world, Jews who you would never even think of that we are going to help. That's who Emet is coming and bringing back to Judaism. And that's what Emet is. It's like the hand of God reaching out and saying, you don't have to be lost anymore. We have a family here, and we love you, and we want you to be with us.
You know, if you were to think about this journey to Poland, you know, if I were to ask you a question, Jonathan, like, what changed in you? What changed? You know, we were on this journey together this journey was about 10 days, including Poland, Prague, and Vienna, and others we got very close, and everyone on the bus we get all the whole team gets close, the whole group gets close. What changed in you? How did you come out in some way a different person, where you said, you know, I came in looking at the world one way, I came in looking at my Judaism in a certain way, I came in looking at myself a certain way, but when I ended this journey, something clicked in me. What would you define as that click that happened in you?
For me, at least, the click that I felt was going there and seeing everything we saw. We saw mass graves of children. We buried bones of Jewish people that were victims of the Holocaust. And we saw all this, and we saw the remnants of what was once like a flourishing Jewish world in Europe, and what little of it was left, and people there trying to keep it alive. For me, when I came back, I felt like an extreme amount of, you feel a certain unique sadness when you're in Poland seeing all this happen, but you come back feeling sort of, I don't think pride is the right word, but like emboldened, saying that this isn't all of it. Like, people, a lot of the time, they like to think of Jews as, you know, when you think of Jews, they're the victims of the Holocaust. They're a victimized people. They're wanderers. No one wants them. And I came back from that trip thinking, like, we're not like that. We're one of the most powerful people in the world, because you hit us and you hit us and you hit us, and we always get back up.
You know, that's, you know, I know what you're saying. I've done this trip now, this journey with Emet, I think 5 times. And that summer I went twice. And each time I have a similar feeling that there's something about the Jewish nation which is just, they can't defeat us. And there's something about us which every Jew matters. You know, that they're so interested in every Jew. You know, I remember we were, it wasn't on this trip, but one trip we started in Berlin, and we went to Wannsee, which is where they planned out the final solution. And on the board there is numbers of every Jew all over Europe, and it said Poland, you know, 3.5 million. Soviet Union was whatever it was, 2.8 million. France, 1 million. And then it got to Finland, and it said 7. And 7 Jews. They were interested in 7 Jews. It was in their mind, we're going to destroy the 7 Jews in Finland. And there it is on the wall to be displayed. And I think we were all struck that, what do they care about 7 Jews for? And it must mean that every Jew really matters. And I thought to myself, you know, if they care about Jews that much, how much more do we care about Jews? Because we have to care about each other.
Most definitely. You know, they like to say that no one is more discriminatory towards a people than someone who's part of that people. And that could be true even about Jews, but we need to take that discrimination, turn it into a good thing. It's not that we look at you and we're like, well, you're a different kind of Jew than me. We look at you as like, but you're a Jew. And just like may their names be forgotten, we're so interested in getting just those 7 Jews, we need to be interested and be like, well, I know there are 7 Jews there who maybe they're not so connected to Judaism, and we need to make it our goal and our mission to go and bring them back.
And bring them back. That's the mission of Emet.
Yes.
That's what we're all about in this organization, that every Jew matters, and we're going to rescue you. We're going to bring you back. You know, someone, you know, Peeps made a nice comparison one time, you know, that as the trains were closing, and, you know, in those cattle cars, and we sat in a cattle car in Lodz. We were in that cattle car together, and we crammed in there, we sat on the floor, and we sang, and we told stories, and we tried to have the experience a little bit, what Jews must have felt like. But imagine as that cattle car was closing, and you could have pulled one Jew out and saved that Jew to live a Jewish life and to be whole. How much would we have paid to pull that one Jew out? Just one Jew. Probably given everything we have.
If you'll allow me, I was once, and I actually met this rabbi thanks to Emet sending me on a Shabbaton in Connecticut to meet him. There's a rabbi who I know who both his parents are Holocaust survivors, and he told us a story about his father. and his father in the Warsaw Ghetto hid on the roof of the Nazi headquarters in order to avoid being found. And he saw that the Nazis were rounding up Jews to throw in to the cars to take into Auschwitz. And he saw one Jew who he recognized, who was a father of many children. So he got up and he jumped down and he went to that Jew and he told him, "Run away, I'll trade places with you." And that for the Nazis, they didn't care. They want 1,000 Jews. They're going to get 1,000 Jews.
Right.
And every day he told us his father, the way he prayed to Hashem to survive, well, he didn't say, "Let me survive." Every day he said, "Hashem, I risked my life for another Jew. Please just give me one day." And I think this quarantine and how Emet has been so deeply involved. A lot of people thought this was going to happen and we weren't going to hear from Emet for a while. That's a lie. I think I'm hearing more from Emet, more so than like ever before, because every day there's a new program, a new online meeting, a new seminar, a new speech, a new shir for us to listen to. And because our resources have opened up more thanks to the online, and that's why we're doing this now, to keep that programs going. But that's what we got to do. Every day we need to look to Hashem and say, "Hashem, just give us this one day. We'd risk our life for another Jew."
That's beautiful.
And that's what Emet's doing. They're risking so much for other Jews.
Thank you. That's beautiful to say. Just one more day and just one more Jew. And that's I think in some ways the power when we go to Poland. To see that every Jew really matters. And they were interested in every Jew. We're interested in every Jew. And, in a world we live in today of such immense assimilation, where here we've been a nation for 3,300 something years, and we have a generation that doesn't really know what it means to live a life as Jews. And, that we're going to go and we're going to say, we're going to pull you out. And, the truth of the matter is, Emet's reached, thousands over the last 17 years. We really have, and we're very proud of that we've touched the lives of thousands of Jews. But the reality, Jonathan, I think it would have been worthwhile even just for one.
Definitely.
It would have been worthwhile just for you.
I have to say that I do owe Emet so much, because 3 years ago when I came in, I was completely irreligious. I didn't believe in God. I was a self-declared atheist. I didn't want to hear about Judaism. And I came to Emet, and, after I did 2 Shabbatons there, and then after that I was keeping Shabbat full-time with my grandmother, and step by step wearing tzitzit full-time, kippah, kosher, everything. Things that I thought would never have happened 3 years ago. You asked me, would you do this? I would have said, you're crazy. But Emet finds a way to reach into your heart and show you that because it is Emet, it's truth. And you see the truth. Once it's put in front of you, you can't turn away from it. I've yet to meet someone who's come to Emet and tell me, it's not for me.
Yeah, I think I remember the beginning when you first came to Emet.
Yeah.
Now look at you now with a beard and yamuch and tzitzis, but more than that, you're the beautiful bidot that you've always had, but have really refined through study of Torah.
Thank you.
It's just to jump back to Poland for a moment. For me, a place that I'm always moved by is when we go to that children's grave.
Yes.
Do you remember the children's grave? Where we start the day and we trace the journey of really what happened to a community. And we start in this little town. We see the synagogue, which is destroyed, and we stop there and we look at it and talk about it. We dance. And then we go to a square where the Jews were rounded up. And then we sit in the square. Remember, we sat almost in the sun, where the Jews had to sit for hours waiting. And then we traveled to a grave, which is unfortunate. A sad thing to say, but a mass grave of thousands of babies that were murdered by the Nazis. Yimak Shemam. And we sat there, and I remember we all wrote letters to people who we love. And we said, what would we tell them in our last moment right now? What do we want to tell them? Did you write a letter to somebody?
I wrote a letter to my parents and my grandmother on my phone. And, it was a very intense moment because, different people express grief in different ways. And it hit me in a way where I wasn't there crying, but I was there, and I was just the pressure of the moment was weighing down on me. And I was sitting there and thinking, how could something like this, how could other people have let it happen? How could people do it? And how could it be that, God forbid, if it was us there 70 years ago, it would have been us in that grave.
You feel how real it is.
And it's thank God there hasn't been anything like the Holocaust in the last time, but anti-Semitism remains, and we feel it, especially here in New York. We see a lot of sometimes that people get very hateful towards Jews, but there I was sitting there and I was thinking, and I was like, these children were probably terrified, wanting just to be with their parents, just to have their mothers and their fathers hold them. And, it makes you think every little squabble and every little fight you get into with your family, you're like, what is the point of it at the end of the day? It's when, God forbid, something like this is not just something that could happen, but it's something that has happened to us as a people. And while the Holocaust is the grandest scale it's ever happened on, it's happened so many times before with the pogroms, the Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, and
it's nothing new for us.
It's nothing new for us, but it's important for us to realize that people like to say, they're like, well, it's 2020 now. And I'm like, back then they were saying, well, it's the 1900s now. This isn't going to happen. No one thought that would happen. We need to keep in mind this constant head state. Poland teaches us that
that's right. That
we have to remain alert and we have to remain connected to Hashem, because He is our Magen. We say in Amidah, Magen Avram. He is the shield of the Jews.
That's right. That I think that's the message that we really want to convey on the trip, that there's something different about us as a nation. And anti-Semitism doesn't go away. And in this stark reality of the Holocaust, we see it, and a mass grave of babies. And the question we say, what makes us different? There has to be something so special about us, so unique about us. And our survival is miraculous. Every generation, they wanted to call door to door. And that's something I always think about also for that children's grave. I always think to myself, in their eyes, who was the enemy? Little children were the enemy. They believed in the power of little children. We can't let these little children grow up. If they grow up, they're going to be strong Jews. And that's our enemy, a Jew. They're almost reminding us and telling us who we are. Sometimes you want to learn about who you are, ask your enemies what they think about you. Our enemies look at our babies and say, we're scared of your babies. Wow, we must be a nation of such immense power and holiness. Yeah.
You say that, Rabbi, I'm reminded of a thing that I once heard, I can't remember from where, but it was a Holocaust survivor saying that he one time saw in Auschwitz, there was a man on his knees praying, and he goes up and he says, what are you doing? He said, I'm thanking God. And he looks around, he's like, what could you possibly be thanking God for, right? Look where we are, look what's going on. And he said, this man said to him, he's like, I'm thanking God for not making us like them.
Right.
For making us different.
That's right.
Because if the roles were reversed, that wouldn't have happened. But it's just for not making us like them, for making us different, for making us special. We're a different people. The world looks at us differently than they do anyone else.
That's a beautiful statement. I hear that. And I think we all felt that if we were to have to change our place to be the victim or the perpetrator, we would never do what they did.
No.
And there's something different about us as a nation. And I think that's the specialness of the trip. I think, we walked away from that journey. I shouldn't say a trip. We walked away from that journey just saying that, wow, I feel a different connection to who I am as a Jew, and such pride and such awareness that we are like no other nation. And if we're like no other nation, it means we have a mission. And what's that mission? And that's what we're doing at Emet.
Yes.
The goal of that trip is, you come back down to New York, and next trip we try to say, okay, Jerusalem. Next stop is Jerusalem. We have to get back to Yerushalayim now, get to yeshiva, get to seminaries, and learn what's the mission. What's it all about? But that's, I think, the power of this journey. Truth of the matter is, Jonathan, it takes a lot of planning.
Yes.
The whole staff behind the scenes, Rabbi Goldberger, Rabbi Rutenberg, Celia, Mrs. Muscat, Sarah B., Malki, the whole team is working on this for the 40 students who come. They're all working behind the scenes. And we say this is all worth it because the change that takes place in a person, that realization of that uniqueness of who I am as a Jew, that's transformative. And then the person says, now what do I do with it? And so many came back and they said, we have to learn. We have to discover who we are.
I like to call it, and because it's not in any way what it sounds like, I like to call it aggressive Judaism. Not because it's aggressive, but it's because now we're going to be much more vigorous about it. I came back from Poland thinking, well, I'm going to be the most loud and proud Jew in the world. No one's going to keep me down, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows who I am and what my mission is. And that's the mission of Emet.
I think it is. And sometimes that loudness doesn't have to be loud externally, but it's loud inwardly.
Yeah.
That there's a feeling of confidence. I know who I am. And I know what my mission is, and I'm going to spread that mission with others. I just, I remember we had 2 girls who we met at Stony Brook. And an interesting story about these 2 girls that they grew up in the Soviet Union, and they were so distant from their Judaism. They never knew. Their grandmother had gone through the war as a hidden child, the grandmother, and she never told the mother that she was even Jewish. Mother didn't really know that she was Jewish, or knew it, but barely knew it. The mother never told these 2 girls that they were Jewish. They emigrated to America, and in America, or just maybe as they emigrated from the Soviet Union, they started asking questions, and they started realizing we're Jewish, and they were already 18. And they came to America, and we've discovered them on one of our universities, and we started getting to know them, and they started connecting to Emet in a very deep way. And both of these young women started to see the beauty of who they were, started making changes in their lives, keeping kosher, keeping Shabbat. And a very beautiful story that these 2 girls, one Friday night, were lighting candles and in their home, and their mother, who never really knew she was Jewish, came over and said, "I'd like to light candles with you." And she took 2 candles and put them next to these 2 girls. And then the grandmother, who was Baruch Hashem also with them, came, a grandmother who was a hidden child during the war. She said, "I'd also like to light 2 candles." So you had grandchildren, a mother and a grandmother, all together lighting candles Friday night. How can we explain this? Emet, the youth of Emet, young people like you, Jonathan, and others, you're bringing back your parents. You're bringing back a generation before you. And we've never seen anything like this in history, that the youth are getting so excited about who they are as Jews. And I think Emet's lighting that spark in them. But it's coming from you, too. It's coming from you.
Rabbi Kegel from Emet, one of our great Emet rabbis, told me, he met my grandmother once. We were at the same wedding for an Emet student. 2 Emet students were getting married. I happened to be related to one of them. So we were at the wedding, and we saw Rabbi Kegel there, and he started speaking to my grandmother in Russian. And she went to him, and she started thanking him, blessing him. Was like, "Thank you for making my grandson religious." And he said to her something that I feel like it's the essence of what you're saying now. It's like, "I didn't do anything. He already had it in him." And that's what Emet it does so much, but at the end, what Emet's doing is it's opening the potential in the people who are already. We're not changing anyone. We're not making you different. We're just waking up what's already inside of you.
That's a beautiful way to say it, John. That's it. That's it. We're not there. You don't take a branch and bend it.
Yeah.
You don't break something. Yeah, we touch the neshama. We blow on the neshama a little bit. But those who come to us want it. They're available. And then they're teaching their families. And that's sort of the beauty of it. How many brothers and sisters and cousins and parents and, are affected by what so many of our students like you are doing. And, the last prophecy in the Torah, in Navi, it says, before Mashiach comes, the last prophecy we're going to see is a beautiful prophecy. It says, Heishiv lev banim ala avos v'avos ala banim. The children will bring back the hearts of their parents. And I'm going to explain, what does that mean? The generation of children are going to turn to their parents and say, "Come join me in the path of Hashem." And that's what we're seeing right now. So in many ways, I feel the work of Emet is the precursor to the Messianic era.
Yeah.
We're right here. And the generation of youth coming back, like yourself, saying to your grandmother, "Look how beautiful it is. Look how beautiful Torah is and Judaism is." We're seeing nothing less than the description of what the Messianic time, the pre-Messianic time will look like.
Yeah. And it's important to note that all the work Emet does and the people who support Emet, you're part of that mitzvah too.
Oh, that's so true. That everyone who supports Emet, We thank you. We thank you. We're out there, we're teaching, and we're creating programs, and we're involved with students, and we're connecting. But this is a partnership, and it's a beautiful partnership. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart all of our supporters, our main supporters, small supporters, and the love that we feel in the support. These Rabbi, I want to support you. When we ask, Rabbi, how can I help? So gladly want to give donations, want to be part of it. And that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants that beautiful unity, that beautiful partnership. We're all part of this mission together. And that's the beautiful Emet. You know, maybe that's what Emet means. You know, Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Mem is the exact middle of the Hebrew alphabet, and Tuf is the last letter. Emet means you put it all together. That's truth. Those who teach, those who support, we all come together in truth. And what's the truth? The truth is to just get close to Avinu Shebashamayim. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Rabbi.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining the program tonight.